Today, I wanted to talk about the book Will Prescribe You a Cat. This was a Japanese bestseller, and I got it as a complete cover buy. I just think the cover of this is absolutely stunning. So it's got like a medication bottle and then these cats tumbling out of it. And I'm going to go into each of these stories. It really reads like a series of short stories, 5 different stories. So the premise of each of these stories is that someone has a problem in their life and they are going to go to this clinic, and the clinic isn't advertised anywhere. They've just heard it from like a work colleague or a friend or a family member. And so they just show up at this shady looking clinic, and then they meet this very mad person who's very much like the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland. He's almost like speaking in riddles. Sometimes you don't really know what he's talking about. There's this really unfriendly nurse on reception. And then at the end of the session, when the person has said what their problem is, the doctor will say, okay, I'll prescribe you a cat. And they get a cat carrier, hand it to the person and say, take this cat home with you. Here is the instructions of how to look after the cat. Off you go. And the people each time think it's a joke. They think this has got to be some kind of setup from my friend. This is a joke. This person is mad. They've just handed me this cat. And then they all take the cats back home. They all comply and they do it. And in some way, this cat is going to fix the problem that they have in their life. And it might not be the problem that they went in with, but then throughout the story, you'll realize that actually this cat, this problem they think they have isn't actually the problem. It's something within them. So the cat is going to work that out with them in some way. It's magical realism, but not in the sense that the cats are talking to the humans in any kind of way, but just very magical. And sometimes they go back to the clinic and the clinic's disappeared. So then they get to keep the cat. And then at other times you're thinking, is this person, I don't want to spoil it, is this person a cat themselves, but they've turned into a human? So it's got this real magical realism feel within it. So story number 1 is about B, and all the chapters are named after the cat. So the cat is called B. And there is a man called Shutter, and he hates his job. And so he goes to this clinic to try and figure out, how can I like my job more? And there's some kind of fraud going on with his job, and he just hates the whole thing. And then he ends up losing his job, and he blames the cat for him losing the job because it is kind of the cat's fault. And then he finds other employment, and the people at this other employment, he worked in an office, now he's working in construction. They love the cat and they really accommodate the cat. And it's really that his problem wasn't like, how do you make me like my job more? It's that you need to leave that job. You don't like that job. So the cat is going to kind of help you in a little way to do that, and then find you other employment at the same time as well. So that was story number 1. I didn't love story number 1, to be honest. I found it a bit boring. And I do have to be honest, this book is really mixed review for me because I started it in the summer. So I started it about June, and then I finished it in January 2025. So it's just been a slog on for me, to be honest. But there are some stories in it that are just stunning, and I'm so glad that I read. And I feel like this isn't marketed as a short story collection, but to me it is a short story collection. Each chapter is a different story, a different person. It's just got the same reoccurring appearances from the doctor and nurse, but everyone else is different within the story. So with short story collections, I do find there are some short stories that you're going to love in it and some that are really boring within it. So it's just unfortunate that the first story I personally found very boring. So that's when I put the book down and just thought, oh, it's going to carry on with this same theme. But it actually didn't. So book number 2, the second story, the second chapter in the book. The second story is about the cat Margot, and who she gets is a man called Koga. So Koga is really struggling with work, and he's a little bit sexist. So he's a middle-aged man, and he feels that this woman who has just joined, and she's joined and immediately become manager of the office, that it's like a diversity hire, he says. That because she's a woman, she's got the job, and he talks about DEI and how he's annoyed with that situation. She's also incredibly cheerful to everyone, and that really annoys him because he thinks she's fake because she's so cheerful, and he just hates work. And she's made it very feminine, he thinks. So all the women stand around and she'll talk to them and look at pictures of their children and encourage them, and really wants to install confidence in them, and it's just a really nice lady. But he sees it as she shouldn't have that job. She's almost conned her way to that job, and she's so smiley and nice, and that's not what I want from my workplace, my office. She's feminized it by making it this kind of everyone's very social and talks about their feelings and talks about themselves, whereas I want it to go back to the old way, which was very masculine. No one really knows each other. You sit in your booth, you don't talk to anyone, you just get on with your work in silence, and there's no social element. And that her being a woman has made work much more social, and he hates that. So then he goes, they prescribe him a cat, and he's also got problems within his personal life, that he has a daughter and a wife, and he thinks that every time he enters a room, they leave, that they just don't want to spend time with him, they just don't want to be around him. And then as the story goes on, you realise that the problems aren't actually the people around him, that the woman at work has just been very nice, and his family do love him, but it's actually him. It's the presence that he brings to people that they don't kind of warm to, and that actually it's not their fault, it's more his fault in the situation. Really enjoyed that story. That wasn't my favourite story in the collection, but I did really enjoy that story. Story number 3 is my favourite story. So the cat is called Yukami, I think, and Megami is, I'm sorry if I'm saying these names wrong, is the woman who the story is around. So her daughter and this cat, they get a cat. Basically, it's about a cat, they're getting a cat, they're prescribed a cat, but it's completely unexpected to her. She didn't know that this day they were going to get this cat. She thought she was taking her daughter to a child therapist. So she's got a completely different mindset going into it. She didn't think she was going to a clinic where no one thought they were going to get a cat, but they were in some way open to the idea. But she thought her daughter was going to go to this therapist and uncover something. So her headspace is completely out of loop with it all. So they get to this therapist, and the therapist prescribes them a cat for her daughter. Her daughter's having problems at school, and she is furious. She's like, I can't believe you've brought me to this therapist to talk about your problems at school. This is so ridiculous. And she's very much belittling her daughter's problems. And I can't believe we've wasted a day to come and do this. I thought you were going to reveal something big, and that's why you wanted to talk to a therapist. But it's just some little girl problems at school, and she's very annoyed. So then they get prescribed this cat, and she said, I can't take this cat home. And she's not, she thought the daughter was going to reveal something, and she didn't, and she's all annoyed. And then she looks at the cat, and the cat reminds her of a cat from her own childhood, and she's like, this can't be the same cat. This is when this like magical realism elements comes in, that like she recognizes this cat and thinks, this can't be the cat that I knew as a child. And then it goes back to her childhood, and she herself, her and her friends found abandoned kittens, and they each took a kitten home and said, we're going to look after these kittens. And her mum said, absolutely not. You're going to take that kitten back to where you found it, back to that cardboard box, and you're going to drop it off, because I can't afford to keep this kitten. I can't believe you've done this. And this girl is heartbroken. It is a heartbreaking story. And then she has to take this tiny little kitten and put it back in a box. And her friend is there as well, putting another kitten back, because her mum said she couldn't have it as well. And I just think, oh my God, what happened to these kittens? They're abandoned. And she always thought about these kittens, what happened to them, and their abandonment, and her mum always like belittling things that were important to her. And now she's playing that out with her own daughter. But also now that she is a mum herself, she kind of gets her mum more and understands her, and that her mum that night actually went out to go and see the kittens to see if they were okay or not, because she couldn't afford to have the kittens live there. But then her daughter had brought this problem to her, and she felt like, oh, now I feel bad about the kittens. Are they going to be okay? But there's nothing I can really do for them. But I just loved how it just played out. She had just belittled her daughter's feelings. This is Hannah from editing. The sound actually at this point stopped working. My microphone just stopped working because it had run out of charge, but I didn't realise. I just carried on talking. So what I loved about this short story is how she was playing out the same mistakes that her mother had made with her. And so by understanding her mother and her mother's point of view, which she is now in herself as a mother, she could better understand why her mum treated her that way, and then make sure she didn't make the same mistakes with her daughter. Then in this short story collection, there are 2 other stories, and they kind of interlink the last 2 a little bit, because the 2 people in the stories just know each other, very vaguely know each other. I didn't like the last two stories. I thought they were okay, they were fine, but I didn't love them. Overall, my review of this book is a bit of a mixed bag. It had 5 stories in it. I adored 2 of the stories, couldn't care for the other 3. But the 2 stories that I liked, I absolutely loved. So I will keep this book and I will reread those stories over and over again. So it's a mixed bag from me. If you've read this book, tell me, what do you feel? What stories in it did you like? What stories did you not like within it? Let me know. I'm going to end this video here and I will see you again soon for another one.